Shortly after, we see the blue head finally ending up showering with Anna. She remains shy and apologizes to her senior for only being able to ask her while bathing, given how busy Anna usually is. The senior then asks what her junior wants to talk about, and points out how everyone these days, including Maggie who recently joined, is eagerly learning. Moon feels inadequate compared to everyone else's hard work, to which the senior reassures her that everyone works hard in their own way, emphasizing that witches are dedicated to understanding themselves, their abilities, and their future paths. Anna shares how Prince helped guide her, showing her that her abilities aren't just for evil purposes, but can be useful too, which led to her evolution. She advises her junior not to force herself but to keep learning at her own pace, knowing she'll progress naturally. After their serious conversation, Anna starts rubbing shampoo into Moon's head, which leaves Moon feeling totally embarrassed and awkward, especially since they had never seen shampoo before. In an attempt to reciprocate, Moon decides to rub Anna's back as well. It seems like Lady May is intrigued by the scented soap in town, and Knight Carter explains that it's a popular item used by everyone in the castle. He praises its ability to remove oil and leave a refreshing rose scent. Lady May decides to sniff the soap herself and is pleasantly surprised by its pleasant fragrance. She marvels at how such a large scented soap can be so affordable compared to the expensive perfumes in the King's City. Carter reveals that they've managed to make it more cost-effective by using different materials instead of high-priced ones. He proceeds to buy several soap blocks for her, which causes Lady May to blush slightly. Knight Carter mentions the limit of 2 bars per person but offers to ask Prince for more if needed. After receiving the soap bars, Lady May looks a bit taken aback but eventually smiles and accepts them gladly. Lady May is deep in thought while Carter is out picking a gift for her. She's mulling over her past at Longsong Fortress, where she recognized and wanted in their theaters. But she couldn't stand the idea of working in a small town like a border town which is full of folks she thinks are illiterate. Suddenly, Carter returns with the gift, and when she opens it, there is a stunning mirror, which is showing her reflection, showing her how beautiful she looks. Even Carter compliments her beauty from her recent stage performance and smoothly asks if she'd like to hang out more. Seems like Carter's head over heels, and who knows, maybe she's feeling the same. Later that evening, after their pleasant time together, Lady May sits down to write a letter to Ambassador Petrov. In it, she explains she won't be heading back to support the Honeysuckle family at the Fortress Theater. Instead, she's decided to stick around Border Town to delve deeper into her studies and broaden her horizons in her career as an actor. Seems like Carter is finally not alone anymore. Another day rolls around in Border Town, where a new knight reports that the Second Army's training is going great. They'll be ready for target practice in about a week, and during this time, he is sure that there will be plenty of decommissioned flintlocks for everyone. Meanwhile, Prince is totally lost as to who this new knight is. He turns to his advisor, bewildered, only to find out it's none other than Carter Lannis. Carter, a bit embarrassed, admits he just trimmed his beard last night. He tells them not to tease him anymore, but Prince and his advisor can't help but chuckle, wondering aloud how chasing after girls could lead a man to such drastic measures. Back to business. The Prince assures everyone will get enough ammo for training and tells the knight to have veterans from the First Army supervise. Once the Prince is done giving his advisor a list of tasks, the knight suggests they could make good money selling the perfumes they make using sugarcane, because he has heard that it's high price in the King's City. The Prince's eyes light up with the prospect of profit, seeing it as a great opportunity to hoard some fat cash. The advisor, still standing nearby, adds that the perfume is the King's City Alchemy Association's top-secret product, with only around 1,000 produced each year, and only a fraction of those being sold. Selling it outside the King's City could mean doubling the selling price. He explains that the scented soap he produced makes bath time a lot more fun, and if they use sugarcane for making perfume, they can rake in the money by selling it to Redwater City and Fallen Dragon Ridge. The Prince is blown away by how little it costs to produce the perfume. It's just a few crushed flowers, herbs, and ethanol, and yet the profits are pretty sweet. On top of perfume, they can also churn out white wine and white sugar. Even though they might not fetch as high a price as perfume, they'll still bring in some much-needed cash in bulk. With his mind made up, he gathers all the city's merchants the next day. Once Merchant Hogg downs some wine down, he raves about the top-notch quality of the product. Margaret's also taken aback by the wine's punchy flavor, but she's more interested in discussing the perfume business deal, so she dives right in with her questions. She then takes the chance and leans towards the prince to drop some secret info he requested. It seems that not much has changed since Everwinter fell to the church. The kingdom of Wolfheart put up quite a fight, supposedly halting the church's army at Broken Tooth Castle for about 2 months. Additionally, the King of Dawn reached out to Grey Castle, suspecting the church's intentions to occupy all mainland kingdoms. He proposed an alliance to expel the church forces and cooperate in defeating Hermes' holy city. The prince quickly asks Margaret about the king's city's response to this proposal. In response, she sighs and reveals that under Timothy's advice, Prime Minister Marquis Wyke rejected the proposal. That chubby one sure has some weighty news. He mentions that Timothy is currently occupied in the eastern region with his men, suggesting he might not be able to focus on other matters. There's also word of a large fleet landing in the Seawind region, led by Garcia Wimbledon, wreaking havoc along the shoreline. They've plundered everything in sight, including churches and many merchants from the fjords becoming victims. Margaret adds that numerous refugees have appeared in the eastern regions, with her caravan taking in many of them. These raiders not only stole valuables, but also took lives and burned anything they couldn't carry, which she believes will deal a heavy blow to Timothy, who had just managed to subdue the nobles in the area. The prince is concerned about the refugees and asks Margaret for details. She explains that compared to refugees from Everwinter or Wolfheart, those from Grey Castle are less likely to want to sell themselves into slavery. Prince clarifies that he doesn't want slaves. He just wants to provide food and shelter for those willing to stay in Border Town. When he learns there are around 10,000 refugees, mostly women and children, gathering outside the king's city, he immediately orders his men to screen them. He asks if they need permission from King's City officials to transport the refugees, but the chubby man assures him it's unnecessary, as overcrowding could lead to food shortages and riots in the city. Margaret offers ships to transport the refugees and strikes a deal with the prince, shaking hands to adjust the cost against the steam engines she bought from him. Outside, everyone is offering their food and spices gladly to Maggie, who's about to depart for the fjords. She's teary-eyed seeing such generosity and probably doesn't even want to leave, promising to return very soon. Prince then hands over a letter to her, saying it's for Princess Tilly. The little girl eagerly accepts the mission, pledging to fulfill it no matter what. Nightingale is intrigued that he's reaching out to his sister. He explains he wrote in the letter about his desire for cooperation, and asked her to send a few support-type witches to assist with Border Town's construction. In the letter, he didn't refer to himself as her brother but as the ruler of the western region. Lightning, her best buddy, asks what if the other witches don't let her come back to Border Town. In response, Maggie confidently says she'll fly back without telling anyone. With the deal sealed, our playful girls exchange a sisterly fist bump before parting ways. Prince feels a sense of accomplishment knowing Maggie is now on their side after just a month. As Maggie flies off with her load of products, Prince wishes her a safe journey. Meanwhile, Lily wonders if she's gained a little weight, and Lightning, who's been making her eat all that food, quickly catches on that it's probably her fault. The scene shifts to a sailing ship carrying Margaret and Theo, the representative sent by Prince Roland. Margaret asks the boy if he was born in the king's city, and he confirms that he grew up there before becoming a castle guard. She then asks how it feels to return home, to which Theo responds that he'd rather stay in Border Town because he admires Prince Roland very much. She then teases him, asking what he knows about the prince, to which he stares blankly, unsure of how to respond. Margaret mentions that Prince Roland is an amazing person, but he had a bad reputation in the king's city. She asks if Theo heard the rumors about him, but notes that in Border Town he's nothing like those rumors. He's a well-behaved, thoughtful gentleman with a wealth of knowledge. Theo shrugs, admitting he doesn't know either, speculating that perhaps Prince Roland was hiding his true self all along. As they chat, they finally arrive at the king's city, and Theo is confused by the commotion outside the walls. He asks Margaret about the gathered people there. She explains that these people are currently being fed, but she's uncertain if they will continue to receive food indefinitely. The strong ones will likely be chosen by nobles, while the weak and old might be left behind. Margaret asks if he plans to use his men to advertise and recruit people, but he explains it would be ineffective and draw too much attention. Instead, he suggests she take his men with her and reveals he's already figured out a plan. To get things done, you either deal with annoying officials or hire people known as rats to handle it. Once alone, he reveals to us that in the past when he joined the castle guard, he used to be part of the patrol team, responsible for shady tasks passed on to an underground organization called the Rats. These rats do all the dirty work of the kingdom to keep things in balance. He plans to approach them through middlemen to see if they'll take on the job. As he walks, he notices some girls hanging at the gallows, but soon reaches the middleman who hooks him up with the rats. The middleman introduces Theo to the group, which includes a young girl and someone named Fox. Theo is surprised to see someone from a respected family involved in such shady activities. The middleman explains that Fox lost all his money gambling, sold everything, and ran away with someone else, leaving his wife behind. Theo takes a seat and gets straight to the point. He tells them about the city's plan to reduce food relief for refugees, which could lead to riots. He emphasizes that kicking people out will be harder if unrest grows in the city. The middleman then asks what they're supposed to do next. Theo simply states they need to spread the word that the western region is reclaiming uninhabited lands, and the local lord welcomes refugees. He tells them to make it sound as realistic as possible and insists on spreading the word that mercenaries and fleets will arrive here in 3 days to scare off the people. Another person chimes in, saying that if there are no mercenaries, people won't believe the rumor no matter how plausible it sounds. Theo assures them that mercenaries will come, and someone asks loudly if there really is actually anyone in the western region willing to take them in. The middleman bonks the person's head, reminding him that's exactly why they're trying to lure people to the western region. He tells everyone that his boss is loaded with cash, so they'll all get a fat paycheck if they do the job right. Everyone's pumped to hear this and eager to get started. A boy asks if the little sister will be joining in. In response, she confidently says she doesn't even need anyone's help for this job. The boy reminds her that the king has ordered soldiers and knights to execute witches on sight, putting every woman at risk of being caught by the guards. After all, they'd rather wrongly kill people than let them go. Theo's mind clicks as he remembers the girls he saw hanging at the gallows outside the city. They were all witches. He starts praying for Prince Roland to become king as soon as possible because he's the only one who can clean up this mess. The news of a ship sailing to the western region has already spread, and everyone is considering migrating there. While these two ladies are excited about the prospect of heading west, the little girl notices something on her palm. A black spot beginning to appear. Suddenly, chaos erupts in the tents as people start groaning in pain. A strange disease-like thing spreads over their bodies, and they beg not to die. Outside the church, a horde of people gathers as priests preach about how witches are causing this infection. They promise to eradicate witches, and assure the distressed crowd that the church will not stand idly by. The priest announces that the church has developed a holy medicine. Hope sparks among the people again, but the priest takes his chance and urges them to devote themselves entirely to the church to receive it. The desperate people quickly show their willingness to give everything to the church for salvation, and they do not even bother to question this bastard's words. Back with our duo, Margaret finds it suspicious that witches could be responsible for this plague. After all, the Divine Stone of Judgment can quickly neutralize witch powers. If it weren't for that, the entire region around the holy city of Hermes would have been wiped out long ago. The first victim was found lying by the roadside, covered in those ominous black spots. He looked almost like a corpse. It appears this is the same poison the Pope told to Priest Maine, the one meant to be used over King City. It spreads simply through a rotting corpse traveling through air, and can affect anyone without needing to be ingested. No wonder only the church has a cure for this. These two have no clue about the disease, so they are brainstorming what it could be. Theo mentions that no herbal treatments worked, and their blood turned entirely black for some reason. He reveals that some refugees outside the city, and even those he sent on ships to the border town, have caught the same disease. He explains that due to the rats' selfish choices, they unknowingly put infected people on the ships too. He doesn't blame them though, as he had only informed them about working with nobles of the king's city to relocate refugees out of the city, so they naturally included the infected for the city's safety. Theo tells her he's stopped moving refugees for now, but those ships already sailing might still have infected people. So he tells her to report back to Prince Roland that infected folks are coming their way, so they should get ready. The lady assures she's got it covered since messages spread like wildfire among merchants. Meanwhile, on the boat with refugees, people are feeling sick. We spot the same girl from earlier on board, with another girl giving her water. A man warns the girl not to get too close to the sick girl because the marks have spread to her neck and she doesn't have long. He's convinced they're all doomed, which makes the girl cry. Even some of the crew transporting them have caught the infection. Despite the despair, the lady believes they'll be saved once they reach the western region. A man bursts in, claiming it's all useless no matter where they go. Another man intervenes, saying it won't be useless because they have Prince Roland on their side. The next scene takes us to the border town where Knight Carter is rallying the soldiers, urging them not to let their guard down because Eastern region refugees will soon be arriving. Prince Roland is equally serious about the urgency, especially after learning that there are sick people coming to border town, and he has already prepared for it. Lily has also mastered the disinfection process and is eager to help cure the arriving sick people.